coming to you from the lovely studios of Tobago Updates Television. And this morning, as usual, as we have indicated previously, we continue with our series, Beneath the Surface, and that has to do with having a nice informal chat with members of the Tobago House of Assembly, assemblymen as they're being called legally, although some women take objections to that, but we try to see how that works. But we look at all the members of the Tobago House of Assembly, including the councillors, the presiding officers, have a nice chat with them and see where they're going, some of the challenges they have, how they made the transition for whatever area they were involved before, and moving to a point where they do transition or transforming the respective divisions or with the responsibilities that they were given by the Chief Secretary. So I have the pleasure this morning, the very distinct pleasure and honor to have before me the Secretary or Assemblyman, as we would say, Nathisha Charles-Pantin. And of course, Nathisha, Secretary, happy to see you here and to be partaking with this program and making your contribution. We look forward to having this interview. You seem so well dappered and like you're well prepared for me this morning.
Well, I'm trying to embrace my roots today. Sometimes I wake up and I decide what mood I'm in. And today I'm in an African type mood. Yeah? So I'm embracing that this morning. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to the world.
Yeah, you know, we should get straight into it a little bit. And I always, from the time you were appointed secretary and I saw the naming of the division, I said, it always tells me of a story, you know, the division itself, the naming of the division that talks about food security, natural resources, you know, the environment, you know, and sustainable development after that in the end. You know, it really tells you a story where this person want to go or where the assembly want to take this sector. You know, is that the same thing, the same feeling that you got?
Oh, definitely. When this was bestowed upon me, I said, wow, they gave me everything that, you know, that captured everything in Tobago, you know, food security, natural resources, the environment, sustainable development, and part of that is like renewable energy and all of that. So they gave me a huge portfolio. But you know what? The Chief Secretary said, you know, I think you'll be able to handle it. And so far, I think I have been doing that. I've been trying to work together with the team so that we execute the mandate of Tobago.
Yeah, it really looks so. And the story is like, you know, you have food security. You have to make sure that people get food, whether they grow it or you import it or you process it. You know, it speaks to that. Natural resources, you know, in getting your food and so on, you have to protect your natural resources, you know, environment. You have to protect and have a sustainable approach to our environment and protect that as well, you know, and then and sustainable development. All this rungs off. Do it in a sustainable way.
Correct.
You know, I really like how it is done, and I hold does that form the mantra or the direction or the approach that you'll be looking at in terms of the operating as secretary in the division?
Well, so far that is what I've been doing. So I had to look at the portfolio and redesign it because I've been in the division for over 18 years, yeah? And before it was just food production, forestry, and fisheries. And then I said to myself, how do we make everything that we're doing sustainable? So I decided to look at the division as a science and a business. For far too long, we have been facilitating everyone without the thought of it becoming sustainable, yeah? And because we're so underfunded, we have been for decades, we have been struggling to do a lot of maintenance work, to provide the necessary support. So whatever money that comes to the division now, we have to look at it in terms of an investment, yeah? So whenever we spend money, we are investing the money, either in the people or into infrastructure, whatever it is, so that people can have returns, not only from the assembly, but on a private, you know, a privately driven sort of arrangement, yeah?
Project. Okay, well, that was an interesting way to introduce you and the division and so on. But let us shift a bit. We're going to come back to this in more greater detail in the other latter part of the program. Your your um your trans I don't want to say transition, but to some extent that is so. You transition from an employee of the division into division, having a division to manage, one of those entities in the division you were part of, and that is quite interesting. But with where you grew up, let us start from there. Where you grew up, and in Tobago we have this saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Which village or community raised you?
The village that raised me, just as what his name, Sparrow, the mighty Sparrow said, Mason Hall. So that is why what wrong like a case a ball. Yeah, so I grew up in Kokowati Trace Mason Hall.
Really?
Yeah, opposite the Duncans. They traditionally did pig farming and dashing. They would supply quality pork to the market. So, it's a farming community more or less. Belmont Farm Road, Belmont connected to Hope. So I would be traversing between Kokowati and Belmont Farm, where my grandfather had over 40 acres of land. And whatever was given to my parents, that is what we had to work with, yeah? So my father would wake me up very early in the morning, and I'd have to go up in the farm with him. Yeah, so we raised pigs, we raised all types of animals. Of course, I was afraid of the cows, but other than that, we did a whole lot of things, plant corn and peas. So I grew up in a rural type, village. And I was happy for that experience. It taught me a lot of humility, for one. I've never left that. It taught me skills, a lot of skills. I actually know how to make coconut oil and different things. Yeah. And from that, I engaged in tour guiding. And so I actually love earthy things. And that is what I followed. My entire career path is earthy things.
And how you take the jokes that people may give people from Mason Hall, you do have C.
They don't have sea. Well, actually, I'm hoping that we have a fisherman fete soon, eh?
In Mason Hall.
Yes, why not?
At least for people who reside in the area who are fishermen.
Well, Captain Ellis, I grew up knowing him from Mason Hall. And he is an excellent captain. He's our best. And that tells you that you don't necessarily have to live on the coastline. So I definitely
believe
and
that's right. Effective fisherman.
Correct. Yeah, and I know a couple guys other than Captain Ellis that they live in Kokowati as well, and they do fishing. Harold and these guys, they are really good at fishing. Yeah, so I mean, Tobago is a small place. It doesn't take you long to reach to a sea. Yeah.
I had a friend in Mason Hall. And I used to tell her, you're living in the bush, you ain't have sea and so on. And she used to take offense. But I used to just poke the fun still, you're living in the bush, and you live in the bush or the forest. One day she told me, listen, I live on the edge of the oldest protective rainforest in the Western Hemisphere.
Correct.
Daddy boy, after that, me never make that joke again because she was so correct,
yes.
And so value to the community where you live. You don't have to have all the resources.
Correct.
And the sea don't make it all the resources, don't make you happier.
Correct.
But living on the edge of the rainforest, it was really startling and show the pride that she have in the community.
Correct. Yes. And every morning you wake up, you'll see the mist. Mason Hall is known for always being cold. And people talk about sea blasts, but trust me, you get that rusting of your home because of the coldness of the area. Yeah. So maintenance is also a big thing. Inland as well. So.
Growing up in Mason Hall. But you stand out, you always show a positive approach to things. In dealing with you over the last couple of year or two, you always seem to be, nothing don't seem to be daunting you that easily. When you got this kind of training and way of dealing with people, I see you deal with so many issues of varying proportion. I mean, it's just amazing. Where you get this grounding from?
Well, as you see that, I've grown up with my parents grew me up with a lot of humility, yeah? But in terms of training, so I went to ECAF, we did agriculture and forestry. And part of adopting that type of training at ECIAF is stakeholder consultation. Yeah? So everything you do, so whether it is at college, university, because I attended University of Edinburgh in Scotland and then Liverpool, yeah? And everything that you do, you must do stakeholder consultation. So it's embedded in me, that my first instinct, yeah? So I guess that is why I try to manage, bearing in mind what I've learned, as well as incorporating what's happening out there on the ground. Because I'll tell you something, if you're a true scientist, you must embrace the views of persons in the community because they have local knowledge. I call them local scientists, yeah? So without merging that theoretical, and with the practical aspect, you wouldn't get maximum success without merging both. So you must consider stakeholder consultation. Yeah.
Yeah, and stakeholder consultation
Yes.
deals with all the issues that the stakeholders may have, all
Correct.
the relationship or
Yes.
broken or challenged relationship,
Yes, all the aggression,
all the aggression.
and all of that. But it takes a toll on you. At
if you
some
don't deal
point.
with it early
Yes.
and frontal.
Correct. And not only that, in order to, look at, because you have been an assemblyman, it is challenging, and a secretary, because you have to manage what happens in the constituency, and you have to manage what happens in the division, taking into consideration the views of everyone. So sometimes you need a break in between that, because at some point, you lose a lot of sleep. You lose, any sort of your personal life. You really don't have it anymore. So it takes a toll on you if you don't stop to rest a bit, yeah, and get back to it. Because you have to represent people when you're at 100%. When you're at 20%, it's hard. I'm telling you that. So you must take a little time just to reflect, balance yourself, and then go back at it. Yeah, so that is my
And how you deal with people's expectations, some reasonable, some most unreasonable, and some dire situations. How you
Yes.
deal with people's expectations. You can't be all and everything for everybody.
Yes, you can't satisfy everyone's expectations if you don't, how to put it? Sometimes people don't know what you know. Let's put it like that. And you don't know what people know. And you have to bring everything forward so that, you reason it out, you use logical steps towards understanding process. Yeah? So communication, when you increase and improve communication, and people understand, and you come to some resolve. Yeah? So that is why you have to listen. And sometimes when you listen and you hear people talk and they express their views, and then they say, you know what, I think this person, they don't understand that this is the challenge. Yeah? So you have to present what you have, and they present what they have. And then you come to a common ground. Not what you want or what one person wants, but you try to come to a common ground and the majority, what the majority want. Yeah, so that's why you have polls.
Although sometimes what the majority say may not necessarily be right and be appropriate, and there is a kind of popularity that sometimes rules over common sense.
Yes, but you still have to factor in that sometimes the majority may not have the information. Yeah, so that is why I said you have to put everything out there, and then you come up to a logical. I understand representation even more now, as I've had the experience for 2 years. Yes, sometimes people make recommendations that you yourself say, okay, I don't think that would work, But why not try what the majority is saying? Just try it. And if it doesn't work, because nothing is wrong with failing sometimes. Any businessman would tell you that I don't think they've ever been successful the first time around.
You're telling me.
Right. So we are afraid of failure too much. Yeah, you try your best not to fail because you don't want to waste resources, especially in my division where we have a little. But you don't be afraid to fail. Go with the majority, and maybe it might prove to them that, look, this might have been the better approach. And sometimes you get that in politics. I remember when I was young, you're very young, well, younger, right? You would hear adults talking about why Robinson doing this, and he introduced that, and the price, and everybody quarreling. And then later on, you're hearing them saying, well, it's a good thing Robinson introduced.
Yeah. His life in politics was really interesting, boy, to see how he rose and then.
Yes, so he went against the majority, and then we benefited
of course, he was
in the long
looking at
run.
the bigger picture of this country and how we could proceed, how we could cut expenditure, get greater revenue.
Correct.
It's a different kind of leadership and prime ministership that we were accustomed to.
Correct.
Yeah, but you studied forestry in particular. What you studied really you said at the in Scotland, Edinburgh.
Well, in Edinburgh, I did ecological sciences and forestry, and then at Liverpool, I did masters in public health, management of health systems. Yeah, so I did a whole lot of things in my life.
Yeah, and of course that served you well for the position you now hold.
Correct.
And so on.
Correct.
And you think that the population or even the stakeholders getting, you have a framework for really working closer with them and even the division, or having the division respond to some of the needs of the stakeholders.
Correct. What I've identified, and I'll start it with the division first. Now, I was really tired of hearing, being an employee of the division myself, I was really tired of hearing the population saying agriculture not doing nothing. And maybe that might be true, might have been true. So what I try to do is, mentor both the experience with persons that didn't have as much experience as the experience within the division, and try to get them to work together so that they could execute their jobs more effectively. I had to train them, get them out of that mentality that we don't have any money to do anything, because that's the first thing they will tell you. What we getting money from? This makes sense, but we ain't have no money. and that is what you get every time you try to fix something. So, when you look at the stations, for example, and many of them, you see the ceiling, it's heavy with woodens, infrastructure in a mess, systems not in place, to provide any sort of indicators of performance or success. And it was really, you could see why it was a depressing division, yeah? And I said to myself, no, but we have something that's valuable here. We have trained people. Everybody in the division, they are skillful, they are well educated. So, we have some of the best scientists in Tobago. And when you listen, I'll take, for example, Dr. Crooks. When Dr. Crooks starts speaking, Paul Crooks, sometimes you have to sit back and listen and say, wow. You say to yourself, wow, right? I would have said wow on many occasions, just listening to him articulate and what, his experience. Our human resource, perfect. I can tell you that.
And there's where the big challenge is.
Yes.
You have a good human resource, or quite a few people, I should say, good capability, good competence, and so on, and good attitude towards delivering the kind of service, But there are others who really don't really care, and some of them are professionals as well, who just cover up, they do things, everything is slip under the carpet and that sort of thing.
In my division, you cannot fake it to make it. I could tell you that. You can't fake it to make it. If you are into crop science, livestock, energy, you cannot fake it to make it. Every single officer, whether it is at a degree level or otherwise, once they show you something, you could tell these people know what they're doing. We have a home garden unit, and look at the marvelous work they have been doing, both in the homes and in the schools. Yeah,
and that is an area that I find really need more publicity, and to be quite honest. Really those people working, and I understand one of the key employees has left. And I know it'd be very, very difficult to replace that person.
Correct, in this division, you cannot fake it to make it. I'm telling you that. So we have a good human resource cadre of workers that we can work with. So even though we don't have all the money, we're utilizing what we have. And that is why I believe we're so successful, right? Because we have the heart, all we need is the money.
Yeah, but Nathisha, you know, another critical thing that you have to address is the level of accountability in the division. You know, and all the public service too, you know, but you know, critical divisions like agriculture, to me, agriculture, health are two critical divisions of the THA. You know, you have to pay attention to that. And you know, the same thing continues with, you know, staff complaining no money and so on. But we could be so much more productive if we use our time more productively. You know, we try to send people home, send farmers back because it's lunchtime and that kind of thing. Somebody coming from Charlottesville or Palativille for some issue that you could quickly go to a vote book or some information and give them. You know, we had to do more than just that and complain about no funding. During my time, we had to find international agencies to help us do different things. The agriculture sector study that we did in my time, that was funded by AICA. We didn't have money to do that, you know, but we wanted to find out what is the status of the sector, you know, before we move or launch forward into any other area. So the collaboration and the change of attitude has to be such a change. And the people have to be more accountable for their time and the silly excuses. Something has to be done with respect to that.
Well, I'll give credit to some of the officers who have been seeking funding externally, because recently we got some money from UNDP to do a local bay leaf and spice tea project, right? We got funding to do several things like the bamboo project in Kendall, right?
Oh, you have a bamboo project in Kenya?
Yes, where they're experimenting on using bamboo to build greenhouses, shade houses, right? We've partnered with Cardi to do the onion project and the carrot, right? So we have been focusing on the scientific side of things within the division. But yes, we are working towards that. And that is why we're trying to create the agribusiness center. And you'll see coming out from that center, access to more grants and loans to all stakeholders under the division. Yeah. So you no longer should you think about agriculture as the division has to give you everything that you want. Yeah, because that is impossible, right? We have too many competing interests and the wage bill is huge. So if you are a farmer, a commercial farmer, and that's why we're separating things now. So I spoke about the home gardening unit before, right? So if you are a home gardener, that is okay, right? We can give you support as a home gardener. But if you want to go a step further and become a commercial farmer, then you shouldn't be depending on the division for everything. You should have your own tractor. You should have some sort of infrastructure on site where you have an office. People can come and do business with you. And in order for you to do that, you need access to grant funding and loans. And that is why we're setting up this center to push you into true business, right? If you have to wait on tractor pool to plow or rotovate your land, then you're not into agriculture, right? As a commercial. In Trinidad, there is no tractor pool. Every farmer, when you pass on the farm, there's a tractor park up there. You can walk onto the farm and walk into a business and speak to the farmer. And that is how agriculture should be seen, yeah? As a business, right? The science of it. If you don't know the science, you're wasting your time. Because you could plant acres of land just on local knowledge alone. But if you're bringing a soil scientist or agronomist, right, to assist you, you could increase productivity, yeah? So you might just be wasting your time doing the same thing the same way over and over again. So we have to bring in those people that could show you, okay, you could increase how much cassava you're producing by doing X. I could improve the growth of your bananas. If you're taking this long, we can cut the time short by doing X. You could plant this variety. So that is where the science comes in. So that is
Even
why
the tissue culture lab could be helpful in that kind of thing.
Correct.
As well.
And that's why we're experimenting on the avocados, yeah, at the tissue culture lab. So that's why I'm telling you, in the division, you cannot fake it to make it. You have the technical knowledge there. All we need is the money, yeah? So we're trying to equip you to become a commercial farmer if that is your desire. Yeah. So, and I was telling someone too, this whole thing about early morning jobs. While I understand that having a job under the THA, it seems as if that's the way to go. I feel secure. I feel, that I don't need to do anything else. I make it and I have everything in life. But if you look at the community out there, who are the business people? Who are the people focusing on getting a job in the Tobago House of Assembly, right? If you look at it, your certain families, they're pushing their children into business immediately. They're not pushing them into getting an early morning job. And that is why I'm encouraging people, even if that is what makes you feel safe, having an early morning job, then think beyond that, because we're all blessed with certain skills, right? So having a business is also good. If you wanted, and fine, early morning work, no problem. But what else can you do besides that? Yeah?
Yeah, the early morning work is killing the sector. Well, the whole assembly, as a matter of fact, everybody wants this early morning work. That is a culture that I don't know, if I was in any position to change that, I will change that very radically and tell people, listen, that can't work. And we'll continue being beggars and mendicants and so on, and just depending on people to pay our salaries and just do nothing. And we feel proud about that. Not to mention the level of ghost gangs in the place. People just don't come to work and get paid. This is serious things that we have to find a way to deal with them. But you were talking earlier about the business initiative and training farmers to be business-like and so on. Extremely important. But some farmers, cry to me, especially when they try to get farming from at least two agencies, Agriculture Development Bank. It's just not outfitted in a way to deal or to really help farmers. The government and the policymakers of late seem to have a position that, listen, we have to make this service that you're providing profitable more than being helpful and creating people to be more business-like and so on. They just concentrate on making profit. You have to make profit on this. You have to make profit here. You have to show a profit here. We are at a stage where we have to do cajoling, supporting, holding people's hands, and so on. When you do that and you go to the bank, Agriculture Development Bank, for example, they can't give you this. And on the other side, one guy told me he went to doing a particular poultry project. He wanted a hatchery. He went, asked them for particular sum, he produces particular numbers, $200 and something thousand he wanted. The people at the bank tell him, no, you should take a $1.1 million funding and so on. You could understand the audacity and the lack of seriousness in this institution. You could go now to the BDU, where you're trying to get a loan to do something. They say they're not giving you no funding that will, and you may get grants there, they're not giving you nothing that, especially at dealing with building material. You can imagine that? We just, the systems, people put them in place for good reason, but you're just not getting the kind of services or the feedback or the kind of satisfaction from the farmers or the stakeholders to make the thing work, to get the kind of drive and development that you're talking about or you're seeking to achieve. We have to look at all of that.
We have to look at, and it's a conversation.
Financing is a serious issue.
Yeah, it's a conversation that we have to. But I'll tell you something. The last time I had a chat with people at ADB. Now, ADB is a bank, just like a regular bank. Yeah,
it's just not just like a regular bank. We must not consider that way, secretary.
When they communicate it to me, I'm telling you the conversation. Yeah, when they make that investment in you, they expect it to be successful. That's why I say it's just like they think like a regular bank. But
there must be conditions for your loans. And so
yes, right, like a regular bank.
Don't make it so onerous.
Right, but they're making it correct, right? So if you look at the fishermen, for example, and you look at and they tell you about the records, they'll tell you that fishermen access loans from them easily, right? Why? Because they're able to pay it back. But in terms of farming, farmers can't give you that type of guarantee. Yeah, so fishermen are more inclined to get more funding from ADB. Now, when you look at the sector, especially in terms of farming, there are certain things that you have to put in place. So I would not blame ADB, right? And I wouldn't blame the farmer either. You do what you know, yeah? If I have to be honest about how farming has been over the years, even in my time when I used to farm with my parents, record keeping was not a big thing. Yeah? Now, my father, we never took loans to farm. Yeah? But we never kept records. So we would plant, we would reap, we would sell, and that's it.
And the money, the revenue is for generating in the household.
Correct. So that money would go and buy your school clothes, that would put food on your table, things like that. But to write down everything, that never happened, right? And over the years, we're trying, well, people have tried to get farmers to keep books. And recently, when I attended the Caribbean Week of Agriculture in the Bahamas, I realized that this is not something specific to Tobago. Yeah? This is something specific across the region, among farmers. Yeah? Record keeping is a problem. So they are trying to organize farmers so that they can keep proper records and have greater access, whether to grants or loans. And they have to understand that it's not somebody trying to mind your business per se, but we are trying to mind your business by creating your whatever you're doing there into a business. So ADB would think along those lines. How can farmers come together to understand there are certain things that that are required of you before you access a loan, right? We have excellent fishermen. And sometimes, you know, one or two would come to me and I realize they don't keep records either. So I would encourage them to keep records, right? Put them on to people that can assist them with that. So creating the agribusiness center is the way to go because, you know, farming the traditional way is good, but we need to keep up with the times and with the technology. So
but the agribusiness center is just to train people how to keep records and to understand business
and how to access
and that sort of thing.
Let's be fair.
What about granting or funds or
yes, definitely. Support? But let's
helping people develop the proposal. A lot of people have the ideas.
No, but you have to
put it on paper.
Correct, and that's what I was about to say. You have to be fair. Not every farmer would be able to sit down and write a proposal. Yeah. So that is where the agribusiness center comes in. Right? To organize them in that way to be able to access not only loans, but grants. Something comes up, they want a grant, we can assist you here.
So the agribusiness center will give the grant? Or they're sourcing it or recommending it to another entity to give it the grant?
Both. Once we have the allocation, we have the funding releases, we can fund things. Yeah, but sometimes somebody may need something that we can't fund, right? And that's where venture capital and these other agencies would come in. But once we have the releases, and as I said, the division, we don't get a lot. But once we see that you're organized enough to have a successful business, then definitely this is something we'll take to the Executive Council.
Yeah. And as you talk venture capital, that is another serious situation that we have here. You know, the venture capital, I know at least 3 persons with application for business for this venture capital and no response. So far. 3 years secretary. 3 years at venture capital.
I don't know.
And it's not that they have no money, you know. There's money there for that.
But I don't know the details.
That is one of the serious things we have to discuss with the chief.
I don't know the details of it, but I'll tell you, one group came to me, and while the idea was exciting, their project cost $7 million, right? And when I read through the entire thing, I immediately recognized that they didn't think along the entire value chain, right? So I told them to build it out in phases. One, they didn't have the experience, right, in doing anything at all. So for me to say, okay, I'm going to give you $7 million, to execute this project,
And no people
it would,
do that.
nobody would just give you
Yeah.
$7 million. So I said, build it out into phases. First, get to understand, um, you know, how animals, the whole milk production exercise, and, you have to still talk about those systems to ensure that, HACCP standards, and they didn't consider all of these things because
Quality
you can't sell,
assurance and the quality
you
of the
can't
product,
sell
yeah.
milk to the population without considering building in, those,
Quality control.
quality controls. So all of that I try to mentor people, but the secretary, I don't really have the time to go through every proposal in Tobago and to mentor every single person. So the agribusiness center would bring everybody together, yeah, so that you get the same information the same time. So we would reduce, the foot, one in, one out, one in, one out. And then by the time you look, a year gone, and that one person then get the assistance that they need. But if I know we have several people in this space that want to do milk production, it becomes easy. Yeah, it's easier. Right? There are several people in the space that want to do poultry. It becomes easier. You bring them together and you roll out one program. Yeah. So that organizing, and that's why I was so happy to report among the other countries that we have started reorganizing the division so that we know who are the home gardeners, who are the farmers that want to go into commercial farming, right? We're trying to find out, all those sources where we could get resources from. And we're trying to find those skillful people within the division that know about proposal writing. And so once you organize things, it's easier to manage. Yeah. So that is how I'm trying to take the division within the time given to me.
Those are some serious areas. But if you should look, before we run out of time,
Yes.
the discussion is becoming so interesting.
Yes.
Some of the critical subsectors and so on, maybe you should just talk quickly about some of them. Tree crop production, fruits, roots, and vegetables.
Yes.
What impact you're making in that area? What challenges or what success you have been having in those areas? The tree
Well, let me
crops,
start
the
tree
fruits
crops
and vegetables.
So
and
we
on.
are going to
Root crop
do
as well.
we are going to do some planting up because we have fruit trees in the nursery, and we've identified 2 areas, one in Louisdor and one not too far from Louisdor, to do the food farming. Yeah. And what I observed when I went to Nevis, they run it like a business. Yeah. And you see what I say, farming is a business, science is a business. And I must say, it's the biggest dongs tree dongs I've ever eaten, and the biggest dongs tree I've ever seen is in Nevis. And you go there, and they give you a tour. Then you sit down at, they have a nice little tuck shop, and you have a fresh smoothie. And then, well, at that time, I introduced myself. So we had a discussion of how this would fit into something like Tobago. We have a lot of tour guides, scattered about the place. And that's why I'm saying, if people in Tobago, which is one of the most difficult things to do, could come together and work out what they need as a group, then it becomes easier. Yeah? So you have a food, let's envision we set up the food farm right in Louisdor. Why can't that be part of the package when people come to do tours?
But we used to do that a long time at the same Louisdor. That was a tourist stop. That was an important tourist stop for when they come off the cruise ship.
And when you finish brush cutting the side of the road, then you go to the food farm and you engage, in some sort of commercial activity with your visitors on the island. Why can't that happen? Why everything is, I want an early morning walk and you stay there? Let me tell you. You see on the Capital of Paradise, those guys make more money than any secretary could make. Yeah? Because they get paid by the catch. So you out there, just a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and you come back in and you have a lot of money to work with. That you could do anything. Eventually you could buy your own vessel. But having an early morning job, where do you go from there if that is all that you're aspiring to? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, we have to change the culture. So that was root crops and food crops. But any particular thing in terms of like planting and doing planting chips or encouraging people to do planting chips, bananas and roots and vegetables, there's still an unsatiable demand for yam, in my view, on the island. I know Dylan has been doing his piece on one and two other farmers doing it at fairly small scale, I
I'll tell
went to
you.
Jamaica some time ago when Bolt won something, and Bolt made the mistake. Well, I don't say the mistake, but he promoted yam because he was from Trelawney, and where they had an endless yam thing and yam festival and all kind of thing. And when we went there, they had no yam. Because the people just start to buy out all the yam and taste the yam. He created a demand, such a appetite for yam. So when we went this a few months after this thing, difficult for you to get yam.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of hype that you need for some of these crops and vegetables and so on. Create a hype.
Well, and that's what we try to do with the Lamb Fest. You try to test the market. Now, business comes out from demand, right? If people don't want your product, you don't have a business, yeah? And we saw that within, 2 hours, all the lamb went. It was so embarrassing.
Yes.
You thought that 5,000 pounds of lamb was enough for a festival? No. Right. So now we know Tobagonians love
exactly,
lamb. So let's talk about yam. And I don't know if you know Potter Bruno. He
Potter,
yes.
of course.
Oh, everybody knows Potter. Excellent in terms of crop science. So he started a program with yam at Indian Walk. Yeah, teaching farmers how to grow yams and the different
Indian
varieties.
That's
Mariah. Up in Mariah. Yeah. Right. So we are doing yams as well. Right? As a matter of fact.
And you're doing the different types?
Different types.
The Kani yam, the Ibu, and the yellow yam, and all these things. So you have the different varieties in different areas.
Correct.
And not mixing them up. Please, thank you.
So Potter has been doing a good job with the yam program. Yeah? So a lot of things that, you think we are not doing, we are actually doing. Yeah? People didn't know that we started to train persons on how to do onions. Yeah. So that's on the demonstration center at Goodwood. And maybe I should pause to talk about the Tobago Agri-Research Institute. And that is why we are trying to further develop Kendall Farm School into one that, persons from anywhere in the region, they could come and learn agriculture.
But you have to have the agriculture in the ground or in the pens or in the paddock to know what you're talking about.
Correct. And so we have to have connectivity among the stations. Yeah? So under that TARI, Tobago Agri-Technology Research Institute, we are going to label or brand some of the stations as a participative units under TARI, so that we can take school children there, farmers there, and they can learn whatever science they need to learn as it relates to crops and livestock. Yeah? In terms of, and that would feed into the mega farming project. Now, mega farms of the old days, is massive acres of land under production. That is not what we are going to do. Right? We have seen where many models of that, they have never worked. Yeah? These models, they have never worked. So
because they require a lot of resources to manage, operate, and market.
But if we have people that are passionate for a particular industry, we bring them
of a particular size and model.
Right? You will be brought under a contract to produce. So if you in Plymouth, you have a piece of land in Plymouth, or I have a piece of land in Mason Hall, or anybody, you can sign on to an initiative under the division or under TADCO, yeah? And we will take it from you, process it, package it, and market it. So that is what the mega farming project is about. It is not about clearing massive amounts of land. We can't do that. We can't afford to do that in Tobago. right? We have resilience problems as it relates to landslides and all these things. So we cannot do that in Tobago, yeah? We have to give people contracts to produce. And I remember one farmer asking, so why you just can't take mine? No. If I am a business, let's say I'm a hotel, and I decide I want corn from you alone. When your corn done, where are getting the rest of corn? So that's why we need people to come together under the mega farming project. So we have something sustainable, the division that it's called sustainable development. Yeah. So the hotel should be, they could rely on TADCO to supply certain goods, right? If we don't have an organized way of doing commercial farming, they would not take us serious. TADCO was able to provide poultry to the island, supply poultry to several franchises in Tobago when the boat was done.
Yeah, that was really interesting. That was good. That was
So, and that was our pilot project. So just imagine if we do that for certain commodities in this space. That was successful. Nobody can, doubt that, right? That TADCO successfully supplied poultry to the franchises and to individuals at prices that you can't find anywhere. Where you're getting 4 whole chickens for $120, right? Yeah. And I made sure to capitalize on that too. Yeah, because I went to buy. And I felt good at supporting
one
the
of the
local
things that
farmers.
you may have to look at is the name mega farm and what it connotates, you know.
Yes.
When it connotes, but we have to, maybe you could call it maybe productive farms or sustainable farms or something like that. The mega farm really give people an idea of these huge, massive farms. And
but
so
I
on.
didn't
And
give it the name. I didn't give it the name. I was given a mandate. And with that mandate, I looked at it and I said, this is what, and that's why, okay, you would come with an idea, yeah? And, to people who could do the research and then tell you, Mr. McFarlane, while I believe mutton is good, you should do X, Y, Z. So that is why I took the mandate and I did my research and I saw where this approach could work, rather than the traditional approach, yeah?
Yeah. And it's always sometimes good to mix the sheep with the goat. Sometimes other people don't like it, but the goat and the sheep both have some valuable thing, People look for you pay high price for lamb,
yes,
than even goat.
Well, we recently paid $25 a pound live weight.
Yeah.
So that is to tell you we value our lamb. We want, and that is why we're putting it out from December to next year, June. We want 1,000 lambs from the farmers and 500 goat kids to put on the stations. Yeah? So we're going to have it in an organized way, of course.
When you say putting it on the station, you're buying it from the local farmers?
From the local farmers. Everybody.
Yeah,
but we're not going to import. That's not the first step. We want quality stock for the farms. Yeah? And we are giving the local farmers the challenge. We're going to buy these stock from you. We're going to buy 500 goat kids, 1,000 lambs to replenish the stock on the farms. And we're going to have our vets. We have several vets in this space. Excellent.
But what is the objective for having 1,000 kids placed on the particular stations?
In preparation.
What is the objective to do?
In preparation for mega farming project. Yeah? Yeah, we have to do several things in order to get the numbers that we need to jumpstart the industry. So the livestock industry, we need to jumpstart it. And when the Cubans came, they did an assessment of some of the animals that we have on the island. And they also gave us the credit for having quality stock, right, in Tobago. So why go external first? Let us try to get the stock internally. Put some money into the pockets of our farmers and, jumpstart the process. Yeah. So we're giving you the challenge out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say quickly, believe me, I have about 5 more minutes, but there are problems on some of the stations, which I don't want to go too much into. But areas like, for example, tissue culture, when you make a request for a problem, when tissue culture make a request for an issue that may happen up there, you're dealing in a very sensitive, a totally different environment than the normal farms or operation of anything.
Yes,
You know,
because
very
cleanliness,
sterile.
yeah, cleanliness is a very important
Exactly.
in the plant
And to
culture
keep
lab.
these tissue plants or these cultured thing in a particular type environment where you monitor temperature, light, and that sort of thing. When you have a breakdown, it's so difficult to get these different things repaired, and people don't see that. You know, they want to go through this whole system of getting quotes and different things. If your air condition breakdown by the tissue culture lab, you can't go to the person and get 3 different quotes from 3 different people. You want it thing now, else thousands of plants will just die. You know, so how the division or the accounting units deal with these issues, these special needs for some of these divisions?
Well, now the accounting unit, now you have procurement, yeah?
In spite of the procurement, you have to understand the peculiarity
Correct.
of the situation, of the operation.
Correct. And we recently had an internal retreat where we discussed how do we treat with emergencies. Why should the secretary get a call that something isn't working from the general public, right? An officer should be the first one to report that and not the public. We have to remember that public service is not just the secretaries. The public, they are paying you as an officer. They are paying salaries, high wage bills for you to serve the public as well. So if you know something isn't working, don't just walk around it nonchalantly and say, okay, that doesn't work, right?
And it must stop.
Correct, right? You as the officer, you have to report that this isn't working. In terms of funding challenges,
and not just report that you don't work in a teacher. You have to say, well, listen, this is the approach to deal with it.
Correct.
You know, the officer or senior
How
person.
do you treat with emergencies? It's something that baffles me, right? I have to get a text message or a phone call from the members of the public. So we are treating with it. You know, fixing this place will take some time. You have you have years of all sorts of, you know, what is accepted as normal. An emergency isn't something, you know, that you should rest and say, okay, I go bring it to the next heads a couple months. No. You must treat with it immediately. So changing the mindset first, yes. And of course, I know in some instances I had to wait on my equipment vote to get the money to get. I know that I have the funding challenges, yeah. But the challenge shouldn't be that somebody didn't report it.
Yes. And somebody, you know, it's really difficult sometimes. You know, you have a tractor pool, people paying so much for tractor pool, the service there.
Well,
1 year, 2 years.
We got over 300, we inherited over 300 backlog. And in the last 2 weeks ago, that backlog came down to 50. We just have 50 left. But the mind...
Who is verifying those data that we presented to you? The same tractor pool people, you know. And sometimes that is compromised. I know sometimes that people name on a list and up to now they call for 2 years and so on. And but you know, to get it done, you have to talk to the driver particularly.
Yeah, or sometimes they have to try and call people, yes, higher than that. And that's what I'm saying. I should not be, you know, always the one to get the complaint first, right? There's a natural flow though. You have people verifying things now, especially the administrator. She's very responsible as well. And the technical
officer. You have to be fortunate. Tobago had to be fortunate that you have an administrator like Miss Louis in work in agriculture who understand people, systems, procedures, and getting things done in a particular manner.
So you know, she's there as well to do the verification as, you know. But of course, if you're a farmer in the 50, you cuss and say, I ain't get no service yet. So I understand that, yeah? But for those that would have gotten the service, yeah, we have cleared a hell of a lot within a short time. Yeah. But let's think...
about 4 tractors down up to the last time I checked.
Correct. And you know why? Because you're trying to finish the backlog. No, I'm telling you, you're trying to finish the backlog. And even though you're telling people, okay, we need to stop. Just like a human being, we would need to stop and breathe and get back, you know, your balance. We have to service the equipment. And people get vexed when you have to service the equipment. So I understand. But if you're into commercial farming, you should not be sitting back and saying, well, I'm waiting on tractor pool and I wonder when they will come. We have to drive the sector from in front if you're a commercial farmer. If you're a home gardener, you have time to wait. So that is why we're trying to provide additional support so that you see your enterprise as one that is, what we would call a private sector enterprise. Yeah? Yeah.
You know, I'm always thinking that one day, I'm looking forward to the day really, because there's some limitations to having tractor pool under the division, and I feel that it could be worked out some way in which could be partially placed under
Private.
some not really a private, but a farmers group, like the Farmers Association or something like that, and we will give them some funding just to maintain the tractors and supply all these things.
But you
And
know
they
the
themselves,
division, the division's mandate is to the individual farmer. So if you put it under one association, not all farmers are in association.
no, you're putting it under the a farmers association, not only to deal with members of the association.
Yeah.
That could be the
Well,
mandate,
and then
It's
how do
something
you
could be
prevent
looked
that?
at seriously.
And then how you prevent, them focusing on just people in the association? If you understand what I'm saying.
But the main thing I think we want to close, I hope we have about 5 minutes more or so, but you touched on it a little earlier, is the reforming of the division in a way to better serve the stakeholders, the farmers and the agri-processors and producers on the island. That need a serious reform. People have to work together. Every unit must have a way to deal with reporting, dealing with farmers' issues.
And accountability. So just like how you are saying, put it on the Farmers Association. Why not introduce the technology to increase monitoring of the service? That makes it even more efficient. And even when you have claims, so you might have a natural disaster and it's declared a natural disaster, and you want to make a petition for some money for lost crops or livestock. How can we verify that information? Because the extension officer sign off on something, how we know it's not collusion? So you need to introduce the technology.
I, as a former secretary, had that to deal with.
Right.
The same officers and them verifying untruth data and so on. We had a problem.
And
you just have to know how you're dealing with it and have people verify the verification.
Well, and accountants, or head accountants would not do that because you could have collusion. But if you have the drones doing the drone mapping, or you have the electronic tagging of the animals, then you're better able to account. So an administrator would feel safe signing off on something, right, to give you what you're asking for. Rather than, you say, well, okay, somebody else check the site, and they say, yes, that is what happened. No. You have to put the systems, the technology in place for monitoring and to increase accountability and to protect the administrators as well.
Yeah, and you have to, because there are times in that very division, the administrator come and they push things before administrator 4 o'clock in the evening to buy tires to tractor pool, and then other tires come for the vehicle. That happens.
So that is what
so people have to be very supportive. Have some respect for the administrator and inform the administrator precisely what you're doing. Other division are the same problem, pushing things before administrator 4 o'clock in the evening and so on to get illegal things done.
Yeah, and we have had challenges.
To change this kind of attitude.
We have had challenges of things not being delivered to the stations.
And you still have to pay for it.
And it was paid for. So you have those sort of challenges. So you have to increase the systems. I did public health management of health systems, and it's sort of the same thing. You're putting systems in place so that it protects. Yes, you want what you want, but remember the administrators, they are the accountants. And if something goes wrong, who gets in the blame? It's the administrators. So you have to protect everybody. You get what you want, and the administrators get coverage.
I don't know if this girl, what's her name, boy? Celestine, one of those fantastic persons. I don't know if she's still working there.
Yes,
the division,
she's still there.
And so on, fantastic public servant to the core, to the core.
That's what I'm saying. You can't fake it to make
Paul
it.
Crooks, I want to
in my division. Can't.
I'm telling you, Paul Crooks, fantastic, most of the vets operate there at a certain standard, some of them have all kind of issues and so on. Some of them you can't reach by phone, so you have problems. But Paul Crooks and one or two other vets,
Dr. Caroots and Dongs, they cannot fake it to make it. We have an excellent cadre of workers at the division. Some need a lot of empowerment because, as I said, with a mentality of I don't have any money for years, it's difficult to get them to think no, that you can get the support if we go forward with a particular project. But yeah, I am quite satisfied with the efforts that we all have made.
Yeah, and we still have so much more to do, you know, and give people their job specification and treat people with greater compassion.
Yeah.
You know, it don't take much, you know, to do better, you know. But it's just that people just fall back and according to you, the level of not accounting properly and so on. You know, we could make a conscious effort if we could do just that. We could get so much more done.
You know
with
what is
maybe
my
this-
dream? No, that, you know, some of the development workers, because you see them in the space, we're not getting paid and all of these things. And mind you, we have to wait on money to pay, and the money comes from DP. So my division don't have any money for DP. I have inherited that, yeah? I would love them to come forward with a proposal of not just relying on that small wage, but something that they could meaningfully engage in to support this sector. And not necessarily, you know, it always coming from the head, right? I want people to start dreaming. And when I was a child, I dreamt about doing so many things. Yeah, you're telling me that, you know, you all don't have any dreams out there that you want to engage in. I don't, you know, to build. Come up with a proposal. Say, look, 10 of us want to do X, Y, Z. Why not?
Form yourself into a little group and demonstrate that you want to do or take the way you're doing to another level.
Agriculture, you could do so many things under agriculture. My God, I don't know how we do it. So I'm saying, you know, as development workers, come up with something that you can do and we will support it.
Yeah. You know, you people, you know, you plan a trip, you're going with some officer, going somewhere, you're waiting on them. They had to call you and tell you, well, I can't come again, I'm making breakfast for my father. And all kind of foolishness that people operate with, you know, we have to change that. And I have to pay tribute to my vet on the Plymouth side, what's her name? Bacchus. You know, exceptional. You call her, even she on maternity leave.
She comes out.
Or she calling somebody and tell her, attend to Mr. McFarlane or something. You know, these are the kind of people that you have to pay tribute to. You know, your administrator, an extremely well-meant person, you know, in terms of approaching the thing with some professionalism and so on, showing compassion to her clients, or even on the clients, but the stakeholders and the farmers. You know, you yourself, you know, the way you operate, you know, is a breath of fresh air in the division. Over the years, I've seen different people. Some, you know, have attitudes as secretaries, you know. But I mean, you're really a breath of fresh air, and I'm really happy about that. You know, we discuss things, we don't agree on everything, but at the same time, we could, you know, we could understand
but
that.
I'm quite easy to understand, you know, right? If you come at me with your own agenda, I would be a bit put off because I'm trained to embrace stakeholders. You know, so if you come with me with a dream and that dream is among stakeholders, right? No secret thing. I have a tendency to embrace you. So recently, the fisher folk, we're trying to develop the bait industry. Yeah,
that's a big thing, you know.
That's a big thing. We'll be able to supply bait to all the pirogue fisher folk, and you know, not only here, Trinidad, and even if you're into commercial fishing. We could do that the same.
You
just
know
like
that
in St.
a big way in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I think.
Correct. And
just supplying bait, and I talking about it.
Yeah, but you know, to set that up, I think it's about 21 anchors on the one that coming up the set net. Just to set that up, you know, in Tobago, you need a lot of hands, you need a lot of skill. And I was so happy to see the fishermen coming together. I said for the first time, I see not war but peace. And once you maintain that, we could pump money into the sector because I could see y'all getting from under the government and making money from building this industry and the other industries in terms of commercial fishing. And I mean, I was excited, you know, in that room. So this is what excites me. I'm very simple to understand, you know. You could want something, But I am sure that many people in the space want the same thing as you. So how can you get it with the other people benefiting as well?
Yeah.
It don't have to be the same thing, but you're in the same group. So come to me with that sort of approach, because you don't want to leave your brother behind. Remember, that is what we have as the tagline: leave no one behind. Yeah. So I'm really simple.
And as you talk about fishing, I was in University of Miami some time ago, when they were showing us their marine areas and what they're doing and so on. And a fairly simple thing, I would think, they catch the mahi of different sizes. They produce eggs at different sizes and so on. And they spawn them, have them spawn, and the little fingerlings, they sell them by almost in millions. And they send them to Argentina, was one of the big market, As if you see, Nathisha, just a little place like this.
You see, you're getting excited? That's how I get what I need in the fishing sector.
Yeah. And they do all this operation and send thousands and thousands of fingerlings. They hatch them out,
Correct.
And they separate them from the parent fish and so on, and just export them. Big business for this university.
You can't fake it in my division. It's either you have the skill or you don't have it. And if you don't have it, we train you. So you will have it.
Yeah. So we have to just we have to break the glass ceiling and or dig further into the ground, or as we say in the program, go beneath the surface. and get to some of these new ideas, talk to people with different initiatives and so on, who have other programs and other ideas. You could modify them, suit to your standards and your model. And so there's so much things to do in this sector. One guy was telling me about, Gerry will have to try and look at guinea pigs as a serious source of protein in Lima, Peru. That is what they do. That is their main, just like how we have chicken. Guinea pigs is the thing. Less maintenance and less worrisome than chicken and all this kind of thing. We have to look at maybe something like that in the future. We have to do as your division is named. Deal with sustainable development, particularly at this sector, whatever is required. We have to stand out. We don't want how much times we'll catch ourselves in a situation where feet can come to Tobago or something. We must be able to produce what we can, more than we eat on this island, and some for export.
And a lot of times we see agriculture as something separate to the other divisions. It isn't really, Agriculture could be part of tourism as well. And it's a balance, because while you get up on one end in terms of, I'll use cocoa for example. We could market the history of cocoa until we do all those specialty cuts that could bring back the fields into production. So I see so many opportunities coming from under agriculture that we could it creates a level of excitement you displayed there when you talk about the fishing sector. When I hear about agriculture, think about any initiative under my division, I get excited, because I don't only think about agriculture strictly. When you set up those mega farms, it could feed into Tari. When you set up those mega farms, you could have farm tours. People can come here. I know when I was in Scotland, one girl asked me to bring back a gecko for her, because they don't have a lot of wildlife there. So if you could just sneak up a little gecko for me to see, that when people come to your island, they want to see what is unique to your island. And if we could capitalize on our natural resources to make some money, when those hundreds or thousands of tourists come off that boat, we could pass them through Hope Farm and pass them through Bleming and pass them through Kendall to show them what we do as a people,
especially in the agricultural sector and so on. It was happening before at Louisville demonstration station and at Louisville station. It was happening before. That was a critical tourist stop.
But we had to get it
now
back to that.
Now the place closing down 10 o'clock in the morning.
We had to get it back to that.
Yes.
And that is why I said let the workers come with a proposal. We don't have to make up everything at the office. Come with a proposal. Bring yourself together. It don't have to be the division alone. It could be tourism workers. Come with a proposal that you think could be sustainable, and we will support it.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, Secretary, I really want to thank you for coming. This
Yes.
has been one of my most interactive and so on. And we're working on that proposal to look at Hope Farm as a major
Yes.
livestock
Yes.
sustainable
Well, yes.
project.
So we set up the mega farming committee already, and we're setting up the framework for which things should work within, because you know, as sustainable development, you want to include things like rainwater harvesting and solar. So you know, so we're setting up the framework so that people
so much potential
understand. Yeah.
and opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Secretary, and we continue to work and be close on all these other initiatives and see where opportunities exist, not just for farmers, but the division and a greater role for the division in providing not just support, but empathy and direction and guidance and professional advice to the sector.
Okay.
Thanks again for coming. Keep up the good work, and say a special hello for me to your administrator in the division.
I will. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was really lovely. Okay, folks, this brings us to the end of this program today. And of course, tomorrow we have another member of the Tobago House of Assembly who will be here with us. And we continue with this series, Beneath the Surface, understand what's happening beneath and above the surface too, and get to understand some of these secretaries and members of the Tobago House of Assembly. See you tomorrow, God's willing. Have a lovely day today.